Hi everyone, welcome to first episode of Beyond Boundaries podcast series where we bring in inspirational leaders to help you understand how you can navigate through your career journey. And I'm extremely grateful that today we have Mahuya Chaturvedi, who is a seasoned marketing leader. She has worked across numerous brands and has agreed to take out time for the session with you all. Welcome, ma'am, to the show. And before I start, I would like to understand your career journey, the role you are currently in.
Sure. Thank you, Shashank, and great to be here. I heard about how you've started the Women's Salary Club and how you are encouraging women to connect with each other, and it's a joy to be here, honestly. So it's been a long time, Shashank, that I've been working.
Yes.
More than 25 plus years. Close to 30 years actually. And so started off, with a brand called De Beers in JWT, an excellent learning ground because De Beers is the world's largest, at least at that time you knew that it was the world's largest miners of diamonds.
Right.
Yeah, and when they get into a country, they understand the diamond culture, and they understand how to seed diamonds in the country. So when they came in, and I'll take a minute here to talk about it. When they came to because that was my first understanding of marketing. Yeah, and it was a very good way to understand marketing because diamond has in India it's a very gold country, and I'm talking about the late 90s when I started working. So India is a very very gold was a very very gold country, and gold is a part of mythology, is a part of our saving system, is supposed to be the woman's best friend, woman's best resource, all of that. So there's a lot of things attached to gold, right? And diamond at that time was for a very very niche premium kind of people. Our job when Tibbers came into the country was to create a diamond culture, and I think that's my first understanding of marketing, is how they did not take a Western concept of diamond and bring it to India. How they understood the cultural ingredient of jewelry in India. They understood how does diamond fit into the cultural context of India, and they understood how nakshatra, which is basically a floral design, which women wear in their ears, married women wear in their ears and nose in West and South. I mean, they took that as the cultural symbol of diamond, and they modernized it, and we launched our brand Nakshatra. So culturally, making a brand connect with people, my first learning ground was with De Beers. Of course, thereafter I worked on various, and I've always, so the one thing I've done in my career, good or bad, I'm living to understand. But one thing I've done is I've never consistently looked at only one industry or one kind of work. I've never done that. So from a very brand kind of a scenario, I joined FCB, and they had something called a research wing called Lab Center. Yeah, and worked with one of my best mentors ever, Mr. Shashi Sinha, and I started doing a lot of modeling, a lot of statistical modeling. I come with a math stats background, so statistical modeling to understand what would drive footfall in a store. Statistical modeling to understand what kind of revenues would a radio channel get. So we did various consulting projects, the multi or the multimedia mix marketing models. So I did completely different kind of job. Also led pitches for the agency, but it did a very different kind of job of mathematical modeling, and we did very very well there. Won a lot of awards. There was a time, and I still remember, there's FEs which happened for media marketing, and and my team, with me, we won the gold, silver, and bronze. So we won all three. So it was a great moment at that time, and a very good team, along with that, and a very good leader. You always need a great leader, for people to flourish. So, I've done stints in agencies, and I've done stints in marketing companies and in corporates. So my agency stints has been with FCB, and I've later worked with Cogito Consulting, again with a very great leader, Ambi Parmeswar, who's written so many books. We all know of that. So did a lot of brand consulting, projects with him. And I've headed Leo Burnett Orchard, and with big accounts like Amazon. I mean, Amazon was a great working experience, to create the brand Amazon when it got launched, and various others. So one, that was my agency journey. And in terms of my corporate journey, this is my second stint with Aditya Birla. I've worked once before with Aditya Birla, where we worked in the viscose staple fiber business, and we launched Leva, which is the branded version of viscose, and Kara, and worked with D Decor for a short time, but worked with Shaze for a long period of time. My last tenure was with Baguette, where I moved from a marketing role into a business head, role, and then now I'm back here at Aditya Birla with with Century. So it's been both the journeys, yeah. But as you can see, there's never been one consistent industry or one kind of role. I have really experimented with my roles. Also because I've only looked at one thing, that what keeps the learning going. And today, apart from growing vertically in one industry, what I can confidently say is that if you put me into any industry, I'll be able to grasp that within a few months, and be able to create the path over there. Because I think conceptually all industries work in a particular way. So if you are exposed to multiple industries, you get conceptually richer and richer, because you're looking at so many industries, and there is a lot of cross learnings that happen. My current role in Century, so Century is a very it's a paper business. It's a part of the Birla real estate business, and here it's a commoditized business. It's paper, right? But there is a lot to be done in the paper industry in terms of marketing, because if you look at it, we don't realize it. Paper is a very intrinsic part of our lives. Whether when we think of paper, we think of only the reading and writing paper, but it's not like that. Paper, is the entire packaging that we use with paper. So that's a very big trend towards moving away from plastic to paper packaging. Then everything that you do, I mean, if you look at any festival, for instance, look at a Diwali, right? I mean, let's make it very human. If you look at a Diwali and look at the role of paper, right from the mithai ka dabba that you get, to any gift wrapping that you do, to any lantern that you put, that the paper lanterns, or any kind of decoration that you do, or the check that you the bonus letter that you get, or the so it's paper is intrinsically woven into all of our lives. But I think paper industry has a lot of marketing of itself to be done, because one, there is a myth that it is not a sustainable industry. It is actually a very sustainable industry. Most of the companies source paper very responsibly. Century definitely sources paper very responsibly. We have planted trees, 100 lakh trees this year has got planted, and most companies do that. So it's a very sustainable industry. And some of the paper is also being made by agro waste, which is actually a way of earning for farmers, and does not utilize any kind of trees, so to say. So therefore there's a lot to be done within the paper industry to be able to you know um, get the right picture across to people, right? And in terms of packaging, it is all set to grow. I think the entire plastic packaging giving way to paper is one of the biggest trends that we will see coming up, right? And of course, one of the job is also to take this across into consumer products. Paper also comes in form of tissues, right? So whether it's making consumer products out of tissues, so all of that. So it's an industry which is which is just started embarking on the journey of marketing. It's more a sales driven industry, which is more B2B selling.
Got it. And ma'am, if we zoom out and people want to understand this, what is the typical role of a CMO? What are some of the metrics that you look at, and what are some of the day-to-day activities that you perform in your role?
Um, this is a very, good question in today's context, because when I started off, I used to look at a lot of research for us, as for marketing as a metrics. So what is the consumer disposition? How is the consumer disposition moving? How is the brand parameters moving? How strong are you getting on bonding? So awareness versus preference versus, you would look at the brand pyramid, your gain and loss of consumers, and all of that. The good thing that's happened with digitization is that marketing is very closely linked to sales now. Can be very closely linked to sales, because your consumers and your communication both has come into one platform, which is digital. Yeah, which is a online platform, right? So you market there, you sell there, or in some form and manner you influence sales there, Yeah, if not, at least if you're not directly selling there, you at least influence a lot of sales there. And of course you communicate there, right? So how much of communication today is happening offline? Very little. I mean, very little, because we are all spending our time on it. And the good part with online is that, you're no longer referring to that era of saying, you don't know which part of marketing work, which 50%, right? Here you really know every piece of money that you're spending. What is it resulting in terms of reach? I mean, from impressions to reach to, if you have a website, then whether it's getting into, consumers who are landing onto the website, how much time are they spending, what are the products they are viewing, and what is the conversion, right? So you can completely track it from impressions to conversions. Yeah, that's some great metric to have for marketing. I think marketing leaders, one, when we have to understand it's online or offline, finally, apart from the brand metrics and the consumer metrics, it results in sales. But having said that, I think the big advantage that marketing leaders has, they are the ones who look at the leading indicators instead of the lagging indicators. So sales is a lagging indicator, sales is an outcome, right? It is the marketing department which actually can show the mirror to the company much before the sales fall, saying, "Hey, your leading indicators are not working. You're not acquiring. Are you acquiring enough customers, new customers? Are your consumers staying back? Is there stickiness? Is there loyalty? Is there repeat purchase? Is your basket size increasing or decreasing? Are you selling enough of your premium product mix, or are you selling your lower product mix? Are your consumers doing enough cross sell, upsell, all of that? Then, very important, and I'll borrow from Baggett here. When you have a fashion business, it's it's one of those business where you need to have the pulse of your consumer very closely, because it's fashion. You need to be catering to what he or she likes, right? So, it's very important to do the assortment analysis correct. Yeah, saying, hey, which product is selling most, which product at which selling point, I mean, which store is which product selling most, right? So you know how to create your mix well. If your product mix and your inventory mix is well, then your sales will always go right. So all of this is the marketing people's role. I must say here again and again, it's the leader of the company who makes the marketing work correctly. Either it can degenerate into a communication role, yeah, or it can become a truly strategic function of a company, right? So I think that's really how you use marketing.
Got it. I think it clearly answers one question that every MBA student grapples with. Sales पहले होती है या marketing? You explained it beautifully in terms of lagging and leading indicators. People can borrow it for answering this question during their MBA college days. So ma'am, if somebody is
Mhm.
starting their career in marketing and wants to pursue a career in marketing in today's digital era, what are some of the skills that you will suggest that they should definitely work on or develop if they want to enter into this field?
I think I want to pause and just pull back here. I think in any stream, in whatever stream you are in, there are two ways of running a business. Either you run a business at status quo, where you're just following it and you improve efficiencies. Saying, hey, this is how my business has been running for years, and my job is to keep it running like that and make sure it is efficiently run. Yeah. So that's one way of looking at any work. The other way of looking at any work is to say, what is my opportunity landscape? What is it that I can do better, right? And then reinvent. Yeah. In very extreme cases, disrupt if you have the opportunity to disrupt, or at least in some cases, in most cases, reinvent, because businesses need to reinvent, brands need to reinvent to stay relevant, right? So reinvent. If you're doing the second one, then you must be a person full of ideas and full of imagination, because logic will only take you from A to B. You need to have your imaginative cap on. So any person across any discipline, I've always seen, and this is not to say whether that will make you rise the fastest in the ladder. Depending upon the culture of the company, maybe if you're just somebody who's maintaining status quo, you'll rise faster than the person who is trying to come and reinvent something, because it depends upon the culture of the company, right? So, but I think your satisfaction of saying that I have done something different, I have been able to add value comes from the fact that you have been able to take a step back, look, and say, hey, have I been, what can I bring in a new opportunity to this business, which is relevant to the business, which is, which is going to help the business grow and which is going to help it connect better to the market and the consumer, right? Both the sense. Because like I said, that there are various things you can do to create an immediate short-term gain in business. But if you are not building that equity of consumer or market connect, if you're not constantly building it, whatever business you are in, finally it's going to be a decline, right? So I think so that every person, and especially marketing people now, must be imaginative, and creative. By the creative, I don't mean what colors you should put on your, on your, which also you should be. And in some way, the marketing person needs to have that creative bent as well, saying what makes it look aesthetically good, right? But definitely a creative bent of mind, an imaginative bent of mind, an opportunity seeking bent of mind, because that's what, like I said, the sales team can be driving the lagging indicators. It's the marketing team who has to drive the leading indicators, right? The second thing I think in today's times to be, and I think that's really the joy that, like I said, the digitization or digital marketing has been able to give marketing the hot seat of driving business, because it is absolutely linked to business. Every penny can be linked to business. So
Right.
from the time I joined Shaze, I think that was the time when this entire thing of online business was happening, when it was taking off. So from the time I joined Shaze and then Baggett, the reason I could lead businesses was because it was digitized, because I was running online marketing, right? And I was running the online part of the business. Initially in Baggett, I joined as the online head, and then I moved to become a business head because online grew so fast that that people could see the kind of benefit you have by driving marketing, by letting marketing drive the business, right? Because it was measurable. Right? So I think great opportunity for people who are coming in today. You definitely should have the creative bent of mind, but you should also have the analytical bent of mind. And the third and most important thing, you have to be the custodian of the brand in the company. So, like all of us have realized, I think most startups have realized that when you chase consumers beyond a point with sale and offers, etc., you will only get a diminishing return. But when you
Right.
can position your brand correctly and create a brand story and a brand connect, your consumers just keep coming back. Your organic business keeps increasing, right? So I think that is the crux of what a marketing person would be really.
Yeah. Ma'am, an extension to that question would be we see that attention spans are decreasing day by day. People are just sitting and scrolling reels. So, if somebody has to build brand from scratch in today's era, what are some of the two or three steps or maybe pointers that you would like them to focus on if you want to build your brand in today's era?
You're right. I mean, there is an irony in today's entire digital marketing landscape, and I don't know whether I'll be very unpopular for saying this, but I come from an era uh, where there was television and print, and there was a third party audit, right? So there was a TAM, and there was a AC Nielsen, or whatever and they would give us saying, "Hey, if you've put your ad in, in television, so many people have watched it, right?" And there was an AC Nielsen who would tell us so much readership you would have got, right? In today's time, it's the people who own the platform who also gives you the results, right? So it's Google and Facebook who will come and tell you that, hey, so many people watched it. Yeah. And the irony of it, so many people do watch it. So your impressions really soar, but your conversions don't happen,
Right.
right? Because finally, that's the metric that the marketing person is driving, the conversions, right? So I think building a brand in today's age, while it has got a lot of positive in terms of the fact that you can track every bit of money spent, it is also extremely challenging because people are online to watch content and what suits them, not advertising. most
Right.
most often you just scroll up, you just ignore the ads, right? So I think that's one of the biggest fallacies we're living with. We put our ads onto a channel where people have full freedom of not watching the ads and scrolling, right? And that's the issue that we have today. Until and unless you make your, so there are two ways of circumventing this. Until and unless you make your brand conversations very, very, content led, which doesn't mean that you're telling them a lot of a lot of background information about your brand, but you're telling them something which helps them in their life, or even emotional stories which let them connect. And sometimes every consumer finally also needs to buy, right? So it's sometimes
Right.
just telling them new information, and new things about the brand is very, very important. So that's how you circumvent this whole trap of of a digital world which is constantly scrolling. But having said all of this, the brand journey is if you're going to build a brand from scratch, I think it starts more from an inward journey rather than outward journey. Because you see, if suppose somebody wants to launch a fashion brand today, there are millions. I think there are fashion brands sprouting up everywhere. Why? Because I think the online system has democratized building brands. Right? You do not need
Yeah.
to open a store. You can just open a
You can just launch
site,
it with an
and
Instagram store and you are good
Shopify
to go.
site, very small
Yeah.
amount, and then that's great. I mean, that's great. That's what democratized business. When you have so many women entrepreneurs doing it. So I think the journey, which was so external before, saying what was a typical journey, that you look at the entire environment, you do a comparative scan, you figure out what's the gap. I don't think there is a gap. I don't think you figure, you do the comparative scan. I think it is about the creator. It is more inward, and the creator's message that the creator wants to give out through the brand. And if that is a very true one and a very strong one, it will create a connection. You need to have a very strong message that you want to communicate through your product, whatever be your product. Yeah, be it fashion, be it whatever it is. One strong message which translates into one strong identity. It's more inward looking because of the extreme amount of clutter that is there. And if that is a true one, it'll find a connect. It'll find a connect with a short group, small group of consumers initially, but that will keep growing.
Got it, got it. Ma'am, I'd like to talk about your days at Baggett and Shays as well. So, what were the difference in marketing strategies between these two brands, and are there some exciting consumer insights that you would like to share with the audience?
Of course, the two are completely different. Yeah. So Baggett is a mass brand selling, mass premium, selling a handbag at say $3,000, $2,500, right? Well, Shaze is a very, very premium, product, selling a decanter. When I was there, we used to sell, decanters and whiskey, etc., which is like, 50,000, 28,000, 30,000. It's a very niche product, right? So the two have completely different kinds of market. So start with Shaze first, which is a very, very interesting experience. And there is, we had, Shaze basically is a design brand. If you were to take a pull back, there it can be very many products, right? There could be, we used to have a barware, we used to have a brewware, we used to have tableware, various other kinds of products. But at the core, it's a design brand. People buy Shaze if you love the design of the product. Yeah. And by design, it means utility along with innovation, along with character. So design has many language. Yeah. And it's uniquely designed products. That's what's the core of Shaze is. Now, in Shaze, the whole so it's a luxury brand, and luxury marketing is very, very different from the rest. And luxury marketing is really, crux of it is the experience. The crux, and I'll give you and very, very interesting insights. Then I'll give you a couple of, so we launched decanters, and we launched the pour over coffee, and we launched a brew master, which is the tea maker. Now, honestly, even I didn't know how to make a pour over coffee. So what we did, and we couldn't sell a pour over coffee without anybody understanding what. So these were all lifestyle selling, telling people, so let me give you an example. So we could have sold these as products, right? But we created an entire collection called the hosting collection. We said people who buy this are great hosts, and when they host everybody else, when they host their friends, and of course they come from particular strata of society, when they're hosting their friends, they would want to create stories. They want their friends to go back with stories. They want this. There's a drama in the way they host, right? So we created this hosting personality. I mean, our entire television communication was about the host, the kind of drama the host, the magical hosts, right? Because the host seems to create magic. Each of the products were magical. That's the aspiration part of it. At the ground level, you have to deliver that aspiration. And how do we deliver that aspiration? So each of our stores, wherever you go to the Shaze stores, you would, and if you were to buy a pour over coffee, it would come with a complete experience. You go there, people will teach you how to make a pour over coffee. They will tell you what's the advantages of pour over coffee. Much before, so we did something called the joy of hosting days. So that entire area was converted into joy of hosting, right? So people would experience the pour over coffee. People would taste the pour over coffee, and people would buy the pour over. We gave a subscription of the coffee itself. You cannot make a pour over coffee with Nescafe. You need a great quality coffee to make a pour over coffee, right? The pour, if you have to buy the pour over coffee, then you have to have a great coffee with it. So we tied up with great coffee brands and said, hey, when you are buying our pour over coffee, you get a subscription of this so that you enjoy the experience, right? Each one of our people, each one of us, when we sold decanters, believe me, in India selling decanters was like a very very new thing. If you're buying a great bottle of whiskey, people would love to display the bottle saying, hey, I have a very expensive bottle of whiskey I'm serving. People don't want to decant that into a decanter and and let the bottle disappear. But decanting has its own advantages. So we tied up with lots of sommeliers. Each of our store people were trained by sommeliers to talk to the people in the right language, saying what's the value of decanting, why do you decant, which whiskey needs what kind of decanter, which wine needs what kind of decanter, right? So we created this entire culture in the company, saying anybody, any consumer who walks into the store must have that joy of conversation. Because finally, what the consumer is taking back is not just a product, it's a story that he's going to tell when he's hosting. Say, hey, this is a decanter, and in this decanter, this happens, and that's why I decant, and this is the number of hours I've decanted. So it's a story that the person is hosting with, right? So, and we created that entire, you know, experience in that format, right? So that's how Shaze was, and also the business model. The business model was focused on repeat purchase. It's this few set of consumers who had to love the experience so much and who had to be treated with white gloves, who would come back again and again to buy more and more products, because the net of consumers are very few, right? So the entire business model, the metric that we tracked the most was loyalty, repeat purchase. Yeah. How much of the basket has he bought already? So if a person has bought two barware, has he come back and bought the rest of the bar? Have you been able to sell the complete bar to him, right? And is he enjoying that experience, right? So all of that. So every our entire content strategy was based on his experience. So we would constantly educate on saying, okay, which wine you pair with what cheese and what food and what music, and how do you create a wonderful hosting session. In fact, we created the hosting day in our stores where anybody could walk in, and we were hosting people with a lot of beautiful, bites and food and nice, we couldn't, of course, serve drinks because we didn't have that kind of license in our store. But definitely very nice cups of coffee and tea. So it was a complete experience marketing. Yeah. Baggett was very different. So when I joined Baggett, it was in the middle of COVID, and they were a very offline brand. So a very strong brand, but built offline. And all stores had shut down, and suddenly the company was had to build scale online very fast, right? So that's when I joined Baggett, and the joy of it is that we grew from almost zero to a 150 crore business in a period of 8 to 9 months. We just scaled online, right? And the reason we scaled online was because of, I think, rigorous analytics. So we
Right.
knew, so we created a assortment of product which was right for online. We knew exactly at any, I mean, I had a team which would churn out data, every day, saying, okay, what's selling? If it is not selling, then immediately should I put it on some amount of discounting? Where should I spend my money in terms of advertising? Which are my SKUs which are responding best to my advertising, which are not responding well enough? Then if they're not responding well enough, should I create, a basket of product with it and sell? Yeah. So, how do I get my offline customers to online? I mean, in the time of COVID, how do they know that we have started selling so much
Right.
online? Right? So, this entire baggage journey was about online, mass online selling and rigorous analytics to make sure that when my customer lands on my, on my website or even on Mintra, the fact that I'm seen first, and they see the right kind of products, the right assortment. So Mintra had a different assortment, Amazon would have
Right.
a different assortment. Assortment was extremely important. The other very important thing about a fashion brand like Baggett is that you have about 1,000 SKUs, because you have bags in different colors, in different
Right.
sizes, in different prints. You have about 1,000 SKUs. Actually, much more than 1,000, because you have some from the previous season and some of the current season. And you have about say a huge number of selling points. You're selling across 100 shoppers, 100 lifestyle, your own 100 stores. You're selling across trade channels. So you're selling at any point in time around, say, 800, 900 selling points, right?
Right.
And in each one of those selling points, you have about, you know two, say, about 3 to 4 people to sell through. So if you are so if I am thinking that I've created a strategy which is so evolved and I have these great bags that I want to sell, I am not selling. The person sitting in Ranchi in the baggage store or in a shopper store is selling that product, right?
Right.
So I think two, three things are very, very critical for this kind of a mass brand. Is the crux of it is inventory management. The crux of it. So you need to know what is the right assortment to be made and what is the right assortment to be sold at any one point. So the baggage store in a Ranchi will have a very different assortment than the baggage store in Linking Road, right?
Right.
Very, very different assortment. And to track the velocity of sale of each unit, because if it is lying in the store, then it is taking away, my opportunity to sell some other product, right? So I
Right.
have to immediately move it out. I have to always forecast a opportunity. So we created an entire AI model of inventory planning, of forecasting what's the right assortment to put in every place, and hence what's the right assortment to make. And how do I spot which are the slow sellers very fast? Because I can't carry them to the next season. They are dead the next season, right?
Right.
That means they have to be discounted, right? So I think inventory management is at the crux of a fashion brand like Packet. The second is, of course, your marketing. Your marketing is digital, and creating, while all the analytics matter, I think beautiful content always works. I've seen that with Shazi, and I've seen this with your as well. When you create beautiful content, it always works. People love to watch great content. So so these are the, ways of.
I think very beautifully put, because if it gives much clarity. If you're building a luxury brand, focus should be on experience and the value you are propagating. At the same time, for a mass brand, it makes sense to have your inventory data driven marketing in place, and then you play around with the pricing. With that, I have one final question in this segment before we move to challenges that women face at workplace. What role do you see quick commerce playing here? Because now we see that people can order these products within 10 minutes. How is it going to shape the future of maybe these brands, and what are some of the impacts that you see going forward?
I want to tell you my personal experience yesterday. So, I love reading, and I was seeing great reviews about The Vegetarian by the Korean, the first lady. I think the Korean lady who's won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and I wanted to buy The Vegetarian and read it this weekend. I was very, very interested in doing that. And I looked at Amazon, and it says it'll come on Tuesday, and that's a working day, and then how will I read it? And I mean, it was not on Kindle. Otherwise, I read
Right.
on Kindle. I mean, I carry my Kindle with me everywhere. So, but it was not on Kindle. And I looked at, Instamart. I looked at Zepto. I think nobody's selling books. I think the quick commerce is what commerce will be largely, because today, in all our lives, if you're a working woman, you're really not being able to plan your home and your household so much. And it's,
Right.
it just like there is vagaries in the workplace, there is vagaries in the home place as well. So you're ordering things on the fly, and so I think quick commerce is definitely going to grow. Yeah. But in quick commerce, I personally think there's a difference between overall online commerce, and that is in quick commerce, you'll explore less. You'll probably it's I think it's a shorter decision making. So brands which you're familiar with, assortments which you're familiar with and you've tested before, is maybe something which you will buy faster, because your decision making time is very fast. You do not, I mean, if you want to explore lehengas for wedding, you would probably still go to some other online channel, and
Right.
spend time of of 20 minutes and look at 100 lehengas, and then pick some and ask, but that you wouldn't do on a quick commerce, because you don't need it in 10 minutes, right? So I
Right.
think your exploring nature is lower, but convenience need, I think, and extremely important. And like I said, it's somebody should start selling books, because I went yesterday, and I was very disappointed that I couldn't get the book that I was trying to read, and I explored so many online channels, quick commerce channels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think they have started piloting like in Gurgaon. Here we get books, but those are mostly bestsellers. But if you have to get a particular book, I generally prefer Amazon for the same. So I'll move gears.
Yeah,
I'll move
maybe,
to the
I
next
didn't go to that quick commerce channel. I went to
section.
Instamart and didn't find it. Yeah.
Oh, so I'll move to the next section. So, as a female leader in a competitive industry, what are some of the challenges that you faced during your initial career time? And if you look back now, what are some of the tips that you would like to give someone who has just started their career?
I was very fortunate. I had some great bosses. Honestly, I had some great bosses in my initial years of career, and they made me work a lot. Because I don't think there was any man women difference in their minds. They looked at a person, said, okay, is she capable of doing XYZ? Let us make her do XYZ. And I was always a hungry individual, so I always asked for more work, and I always got more work than I could bite. But one thing I know I would say is, I will mention Apurva Purohit here. I don't know whether you all have read her books. She's one of the women I've always loved, and I've worked with her before. And she says, lady, you're not a man, and she's got a series of books. So I think women have to also accept bad or good. I mean, that they have to work harder, you know and especially in your initial years, because if you get married and you have a kid. So when you get married and you have a kid, but if you don't have a support system, and if you have to take a break, unfortunately you have to do that. But even if you have a support system, you are the chief you are the chief caretaker, and you have to double up. If you only have the hunger to do your job despite staying awake the whole night, only then you'll be able to manage it. Because I remember those days, and I was with, like I said, Lodestars to run pitches, and my son was 2 years, 1.5 years old. Then he had this whole habit of staying awake at night. Yeah.
Right.
So I would actually spend the whole night sitting with him. And at 6 o'clock, he would fall asleep, and I would get up to go for my work. And I remember the only time I would sleep was in the car, and I would go to office. But I had a boss who once told me, I keep saying, we had fantastic bosses at FCB who would tell me, don't worry, you are looking very sleepy. Take half an hour, 1 hour, sleep, then start your work. So like I said, I had great bosses, and but like I said, I think a lot of it happens when people see your hunger, and then see you are a part of the talent pool. So if you're hungry and if you're okay with your work, they'll give you the work. But we have to double up. Unfortunately, the reality of life is we have to double up in those initial years. So I have never faced a problem in my entire corporate career of being a woman in my initial years. I have faced that later. You know, I have faced that
Okay.
later, and I would not to mention where, but I have faced it in such a way that women look at women, and I think it's not about training the woman; it is about training the man to say you have to understand that she is here because she's very serious about her work. If she's reached a
Right.
certain level, she is very, very serious about her work. And you need to give her that space. And of course, if you are a woman who is more upfront, direct, which you have to be, because nobody else will advocate for you. You have to advocate for yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you are like that, and if you ask for what is truly yours, then you will be also labeled. You will also be labeled. So a man can be assertive. A woman, if she tries to be assertive, will immediately be labeled as aggressive. Yeah. Oh, she's very aggressive, right? So but I think it's about where you want to go. If you want to go to an X place, there are going to be times, and I've had good parts of my journey and bad parts of my corporate journey, and I have to take both in my stride. And not every time will I get a set of people or bosses or leaders who are going to give me that space.
Right.
Some people are not going to give that to me, and I have to be able to walk through that as well. Yeah. So it's really up to us. We have to treat ourselves as individuals. And finally, discipline, hunger, intent shows. Yeah. And if
Right.
it doesn't show, and if that doesn't bring a change, you'll have to change the place. Then, you know.
नहीं, नहीं, very rightly said. One thing that I also keep on getting queries on, would like your recommendations there. Women keep on asking that we find it very difficult to ask for a promotion or a raise because we think that it will maybe bring us in bad light. So in situation like this, how they can have these kind of conversations with their bosses when it's about their career or maybe next phase of growth? What are some of the tips that you'd like to share with them?
I have seen men be super confident. I have seen men say, "Oh, nobody does a job like I do.
Right.
Nobody." They are super confident. And they I mean, to the extent of bulldozing somebody else's point of view, they will say, this is my point of view, this is the way to go. Yeah. Very often, and me included, I step back and we get, we are probably not so confrontative, and we step back, and that's exactly what they want us to do. That's
Right.
exactly what the point of this, of this super confidence is, that hey, I know what I'm saying and you don't know what you're saying. And that's exactly what happens. It happens to me as well, even now, that when I step back and I say, okay, I mean, I don't want to take up a confrontation, because I view it as a confrontation. He views it as his natural way of communication. Yeah.
Right.
So the
Right.
man is viewing it as a natural way of communication. No, I'm not judging the man. That's how he communicates. And I view it as a confrontation, because that's not the natural way I communicate. I would rather
Right.
have somebody sit down patiently and listen to me, right? But that's not going to happen. Yeah. At times, and I don't know whether you read the book I've read. I follow Indira Nui, and I read her book, and I read her book. And she speaks about this very, very beautiful. She speaks about this. If you have a great leader, you will see the leader then making space for the woman, saying, hey, let her finish. Let her
Right.
finish. But unfortunately, I mean, sometimes you don't have that. And then you'll have to speak up for yourself. Yeah? You have to also ask for your promotion. You also have to ask for all of the others, because the other thing is, I've always realized that even if I think I'm doing my bit in asking for promotion, the men have done much more. They've probably campaigned for it for the last 6 months, and I have
Right.
had
Right.
one meeting on it, and I may be thinking, oh, I have done my bit. But no, I have really not done it, because men have gone and campaigned for it for 6 months back. Yeah. So I think we are bad, and I would put myself into it. We are bad at this. We do not, I think we are groomed to say, okay, people will understand. No, people are not there to understand, and people
Right. Right.
don't understand. Yeah. Like I said, but I've also had, especially my initial years, I've had fantastic cultures and fantastic workplaces and fantastic bosses who have understood, who've given the space. But not always. Not always. It's not going to happen. And yes, it comes with its share of heartburn, but you have to live with it. But um, whatever we are doing less. We have to do a lot more. Even if
Right.
we
Right.
think
Very.
that we are doing a lot, I think that's much lower than what the men are doing. So we have to do a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I think regular conversations around this should not be a taboo because you have to, at the end of the day, ask for it. Then only you will be getting it. There's one more section of women, ma'am, who are wanting to come back after a career break, maybe due to maternity break or maybe taking some time off for doing their personal work. So if somebody wants to make a comeback after career break, what are certain things that you will suggest them to start doing, or maybe start focusing on if they want to come back to the mainstream?
So I think in today's time, when you're taking a career break, you can still be involved in the professional world because there is a
Right,
LinkedIn. You can create a voice for yourself.
right,
There is shorts. There are various. You can keep writing. You can develop yourself. You can read. You can write about it. You can speak about it. You can still be very much involved in this whole corporate circle, right? Because of the platforms that you have. um I think woman, see, there is not much that a woman can do. If she has to take a 2 year break or a 3 year break, then she has to take that break, unfortunately. If she can study something along with it, good. But
right,
honestly, the first few years of being a mother is very difficult because your child needs 100% attention, right?
right,
I was very fortunate. I had my mother and my mother-in-law step in. Yeah. But yet, like I said, that I have gone, I mean, first 3 years in my life, I never slept at night. And my only big wish was, can I sleep one night? Honestly, that was my
right,
only big wish. That can I sleep one full night? Because my son would always be awake, right? So it's
right,
difficult. It's even if it's support system, but I had a support system. But many people do not have a support system and they have to take a break. And it is not easy to say, oh, why don't you study something along with it, or why don't it's very difficult. Your child
right,
needs 100% attention. But what happens is when you're going back after the break, I think, like I keep saying, I think, uh, you know, the men and the organization. So if you're a woman, firstly, if you're a woman and another younger woman has come and asked you for, or has come for a job, I think you have to give that space to her, saying, yes, this 3 years she has been taking a break, which is legitimate. I will
right,
have to give her a space, right?
right,
If you're a man, also you'll have to treat her,
right,
also you'll have to treat like that. And I'll take a non-work example here. I was just this week, a few days back with some men, and some men, not women really, because very often in my work circle there are more men than women. So this I was with some men and they were talking about how unsafe it is for women to walk out, and unfortunately that is unsafe, etc. But my question to them is, what are you doing to make it safe? Finally, it's you all who have to do it to make it safe, right? So I
right,
think men have to take up this responsibility. At the end of the day, they were the ones who pushed women back, right? Hundred of years back. So they have
right.
to take up this responsibility of now creating a safer space as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we also see a lot of brands and companies also coming up with this returnship program where they are welcoming women professionals back to work. And I think this brings me to my
Too
last
little,
question.
too less. I
Yeah,
must tell you this, too little, too less. Finally, everybody wants a person to join who is going to start delivering from day one. So if
right,
you've
that
taken a
expectation.
3 year break, then there is a worry that, oh, will she deliver from day one? Yeah,
Right.
and will she go back to her child earlier? I'll give you an example, and I'll tell you about my own example. So I would give my son one feed in the morning. So one say a breakfast in the morning and then leave. Which is why I used to come a little late in the morning into office. And so I had a boss and I had a super boss. So my boss, who was a lady, actually called it out and said, "You cannot turn up late." Yeah, and fair point,
Oh,
from her end, saying I cannot turn up late because why will I turn up late? It was a make or break for me. I told her very clearly that I cannot come before this because I have to feed my son this one meal and come. But my
right,
super boss, who was a man, stepped down and said, but she works till 9:30 at night, and if she's saying that she will come at a half an hour later or 1 hour later to office, give her that, give her
right,
that. So it's really about people and bosses.
right. Yeah, it
So you
completely
need
depends.
to create that environment, and it is each to its own. I think many more conversations in this area is going to facilitate this and create awareness.
Yeah, I think we need to be quite more flexible when it comes to these things because there are European counterparts where flexibility is extremely high. And here we talk about 70, 90 hour work week and keep on focusing on that. I think this brings me to my last question. There is a lot of chatter around AI. What role do you see AI playing in marketing going forward?
We have moved to AI completely. So if
Okay.
you look at it, all our images, all our videos, all our ads are being generated by AI. So I think it's going to be the era of ideas more and more, because
Right.
your execution is going to be simpler, yeah, with AI. Yeah, and it's amazing because AI is, I don't think we're shooting as much, or we are buying images as much. It is mostly AI generated. Yeah,
Right.
and that's happened in span of 6 to 8 months. I think the entire industry in advertising has moved to AI, and it'll move a lot more, right? So I think, but it's a great thing because you then have more and more time to do the pure blue idea,
Right.
right? So let's focus on the idea part of it, because execution is going to be that much more easier, right? And I think every marketer needs to embrace AI fully, because it's a great enabler. It's a
Right.
great enabler, right? In terms of how you want to communicate. Of course, your AI being used in terms of analytics was already being done to a large extent. And we were being able to see who are, or predict or forecast and create the right communication channel for different cohorts of consumers, which was AI, and that's going to get much more refined with time. But the entire creative process has become extremely liberated with AI, and that's going to also help democratization of brands, right? I mean, it's much more cheaper for a new age brand to launch it online, have
Right.
AI drive the metrics, plus AI give much cheaper access to communication tools, right?
Right.
So I think it's a great thing, and it's going to give the power and the mind space to ideas, for marketers.
Got it. I think with that, I'm done with my set of questions. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time. It was
Thank
really
you.
great to have you here. And we wish to have you for more such conversations going forward as well.
Thank you. Look forward, Shashank. Great to have a conversation, and I'm very happy you're creating, platforms for women. Please keep doing that. Hope to connect to many more women, through this. And thank you. It was a joy. Pleasure talking to you, Shashank.
Thank you.
Bye.